Hello, friends. It's Mr. Matt here with your children's sermon for today. And I have to tell you, today's Jesus story is one that can make us a little bit uncomfortable. Because in this Jesus story, Jesus actually gets mad at people. He's angry and he's throwing tables over and he's pushing people out of the temple. Oh, you didn't hear the story yet? Oh, well, let me tell you the story. In our story, Jesus goes to the temple in Jerusalem. Now, the temple was seen as the main place where God would be, where you would go to worship and pray at the temple in Jerusalem was about as close to God as you could get. And Jesus had gone to Jerusalem and was going to the temple as part of a festival. But when he gets there, instead of finding people going to the temple to worship and pray, he finds all of this noise and all of this business, like a marketplace was set up. And people are there and they're buying and selling animals and they're exchanging currency back and forth. And the people that are the merchants there are there. They're trying to make some money and maybe trying to take advantage of some of the people who have come into town for this Passover. And in the midst of all this, Jesus comes into the temple and he sees that the people that are there aren't there for worship or for prayer. They're there because they're trying to make money. And this fills Jesus with a sense of outrage. And he starts moving them out of the temple and turning over their tables and doing everything he can to get them out of the temple. And he says, "This is my Father's house. You don't do this here. Go, get out, leave." Now, this is a very different Jesus from the Jesus that we know in so many of our Jesus stories. But I think Jesus, in what he is doing here, is teaching us something really important. See, what had happened at the temple then is people got confused and were mixing things up. Now, I started out by saying that the temple was a place where you were supposed to go to worship God and to pray to God and have time with God. And that time and that place was supposed to be holy. Now, what do we mean when we say it's a holy time or it's a holy place? Well, what we mean is it is something that is set aside especially for God. And so the temple and going to the temple was supposed to be an activity and was supposed to be time that was set apart for the people to be with God and God to be with his people. It was holy time and it was a holy place. But some of the business around the temple and trying to make it possible for people from all over to come to Jerusalem and to come and do what they needed to do at the temple, that side, that just sort of regular, everyday earth type business, that had gone from happening outside of Jerusalem and outside of the temple, and it had been brought inside. Now, all of the things that people were doing, they weren't illegal activities at all, but they were happening in the wrong spot. They were happening in the wrong place. People had forgotten that there's a difference between regular things that you do in the world and holy places and the things that you do at holy times. They had taken things that were holy and things that were regular or profane, and they were mixing them up and they were happening together. And because they were happening together, it was making the holy stuff, that which was set apart for God, and was dragging that down to make it mundane so that it wasn't special anymore, so that it wasn't set apart and important. And that is what Jesus gets upset about. Jesus says, no, in my Father's house, it is a holy place. It is set apart. It is different. It is special. And you should remember that and treat it that way. Keep it holy. Don't do other business in here. Don't do other things here. Remember that this place, this temple, and remember that God, of all things, is special and important and set apart. Don't mix that up with every other part of your life. I think that's a really important lesson for all of us as Christians. There are lots of things that we do in the world. Some things we have to do, some things we like to do, and it's easy to try to do all of those things and treat them in the same way. And it's easy to forget that God's house and our time in worship with God and being in the presence of God is special. And it is something that we need to keep holy. Jesus pushes all of that out of the temple in order to try to restore the holiness of God's temple. And I think for us, it's a reminder that sometimes we need to push back ordinary things in our life and make the time and set aside a special time for the worship with God, of God, and our prayers with God and our time with God. We need to push them apart and keep them separate so that our time with God can stay holy. It's a really important lesson to learn, and I hope it's one that, after hearing this, I hope you understand a little bit better about what Jesus was doing and why he was doing it. And I hope that it inspires you to always remember to treat God's house as holy and to make your relationship with God one that is special and set apart and holy as well. All right. That's our children's sermon for today. I'm really looking forward to seeing you all soon. But until then, remember how much God loves you. Remember how much your parish family loves you and misses you. And remember how much I love you too. All right. Bye for now.